Paranormal M takes you deep into the world of the mysterious and the supernatural. Subscribe now and stay tuned for tales that'll leave you on the edge of your seat. The unknown is calling. Are you ready? Strange occurrence / ghost sighting. So a couple of nights ago I decided to sneak out of my house to hang out with 2 other friends. It wasn't anything illegal, it was more just lurking around and having fun. It was about 9:50 or so when we all decided we should probably go back inside before I get caught with my parents. One of my 2 friends needed to go back home, since she was visiting my other friend in the neighborhood. As I was walking back home, everything seemed normal. I live by a middle school, and the front of it is practically in my backyard. So when we snuck out, we decided to go back to the middle school onto their soccer field. This wasn't a lengthy process, considering me and my friend lived in the same block. But as I was walking through my backyard to my garage to open it, I heard this noise. It didn't sound like anything concerning the first time, but when it happened again, I started to get a gross gut feeling. It had almost sounded like a hoarse scream, like something barely screaming. I had heard it 2 more times and then looked down my street. I had sawed and I saw what was screaming. It was this white mass running from house to house. It could have just been tweaking, but wasn't on any kind of drugs or anything. Wasn't that type of hanging out. As soon as I got called inside, I called my 2 friends and told them to get inside immediately. They said they had also heard the same screaming, but a lot louder and stronger from where they were. When I heard it, I was in front of my house, and my whole neighborhood basically connects to the middle school, so when they were on the field, the other side of the field is all houses and at the end of my street. I had them run to my backyard and stayed out there until, my one friend's mom came and picked them up and took them home. Is this some sort of weird phenomenon or creature? Someone help, it's been on my mind for the past 5 days. My few experiences. So I've always been kind of obsessed with ghosts and all that. So much so that my friends and I like to do these rituals like Bloody Mary and trying to summon ghosts. My mom was always into the psychic side, so she even bought a Ouija board. I had the thing in my room for a few years. Not related, but whenever my mom asked about my future, it would always go straight off the top of the board. I don't usually believe in the Ouija board, but I thought I'd tell y'all. Okay, now I'll tell y'all the experiences. When I was younger, I was in the bathtub all alone. When I looked up, a tall figure with rags all over ripped, and then it ran past the door frame into the bedroom areas, and I never saw it again. Another time, I was home alone, and I set up a bunch of my toys like Lego doll houses and characters on my bed. Not close to the edge. When I went to the bathroom, and after a while of me being in there, I hear this loud thud upstairs. Being a child, I got scared and crept upstairs, and when I got there, all my stuff was on the floor. Another thing was when I had this small, like, dog-looking teddy bear thing, and it was full of beads. I'd set it up beside me on the bed. It was facing the wall opposite of me. I turned to fix my pillow, and suddenly it's facing me. There's no way it could have moved by itself. And 2 other times I got upstairs, I woke up maybe around 2 or 3 a.m., which is cliche, I know. And I saw these faces almost like they were crouching, but just high enough for me to see their heads, or disembodied heads, in front of my closet. One time it looked like Ghostface from Scream. Google it if you don't know what it looks like. It looked like it was laughing. The whole house was completely silent, like nodding its head back and forth, almost taunting me. I knew I wasn't asleep. I was fully conscious and wasn't sleep paralysis because I could move. I went and tried to sit up, and it inched its head closer to me. So I lay back down. I stayed looking at it and laughing until I passed out. The other time I woke up, I saw the head of a woman, and again in front of my closet. She was completely white or extremely pale, straight hair, but she seemed like she was splattered with blood, but didn't quote-unquote laugh. She smiled, swung her head side to side, even threw her head back, exposing her slit throat. She had a slit throat. That was the last thing I ever saw of either of them. My last experience that I remember was I was up late as usual, maybe 11 or so, and I was about to sleep. I laid there and I felt hands patting me down from my back to my hips and a bit lower. Wasn't anyone in my family. My bed was really close to the wall and I was facing the doorway. I would have seen someone if it was them. Nowadays, kind of just hearing these footsteps occasionally when I'm home. Maybe a light switch flip, but no lights turn on, and, of course the presence of somebody with you when you're alone or not, but, it's none of the people with you. The light switch thing doesn't happen anymore, though. Extremely sinister experience as a young teenager in 2009. Extremely tall, skinny, grayish-white entity with no features like a face. This was about 15 years ago. Still get goosebumps and chills every time I talk about or think about this thing. It's traumatized me for the past 15 or 16 years. Best description is a human-shaped Slender Man type entity with no clothes. Imagine a featureless human shape made out of like a gray modeling clay that resembles a naked Slender Man type looking thing. At least 10, 12 feet tall. Has the ability to induce an adrenaline rush followed by paralyzing fear, even though you have no idea if it was around or anything to make you that scared. Anyways, here is how it all went down. I'm 30 now, and I was maybe 14 or 15 at the time. I still live in the same house to this day. So, I was playing my Xbox in my room at night, had my window open, and suddenly I got this cold ice feeling in my veins from my head to my toes and an intense rush. I was rendered completely paralyzed from fear. Literally out of nowhere, this just hits me in the body. I knew something was behind me outside my wide-open window. Never have I ever been that scared in my life since then or ever before that point. So, I just knew deep down that I was being watched by something. It felt evil, and I felt the danger beyond words to even describe. Finally, somehow got enough nerve to turn around and broke free of this paralyzing fear that was gripping my whole body. Spin around, purposely avoiding looking out my window, dive on my bed, being it was right below that same window. Then I hid underneath my blankets. I was listening for anything that could tell me if there was something out there. I was confused and I was scared about what I was feeling and what was going on. After a few minutes of not hearing anything, I grabbed the windowsill and slowly peeked over and out my window to see if I could see anything. At the time, I owned a PT Cruiser that was parked outside about 15 feet away directly adjacent from my window. And to my astonishment, this tall, gray thing, it looked like it had a fuzzy-like static that clung to its entire body. After it stood up, it turned its head in my direction and it had no face at all, just flat and gray. It seemed as if it stood up from a crouched position behind my car. The top of the cruiser was a little below the waist of this thing. Extremely tall and thin, its arms and legs were long and skinny. I don't remember seeing hands because I was locked in its faceless form looking at me in this static cloud kind of covered and made parts hard to see. Another weird characteristic was it moved, and only when it moved it made a sound like rushing wind or river rushing from a distance, like white noise. Like a really loud TV static noise with a wind sound. But when it stopped moving, the sound would stop also. It was a cold winter night. No wind, no sounds either. So because of that, it stuck out and was super out of place. This flat, faceless thing turned toward me. I assumed that it was looking at me. Then, in theory, just robotic-looking way, possibly its waist turned away from me, and then its upper body, and then its head turned away last, rushed out into the darkness into my field, and without skipping a beat, it just walked over a 5-foot cattle fence like it was nothing. And as I mentioned before, it made this rushing static wind sound the whole time. The static smoke that clung to its body became real static looking and like a heavy smoke. It trailed behind it and slowly fell to the ground and disappeared. Walked until the darkness swallowed it up. I could not see it and it disappeared. The top of my PT was a little below its waist, and I've done some research and I think it might be a naked slender man in the closet thing. I know it sounds nuts, and if anybody's seen the same thing, you can share their experience with me, that'd be great. I've been fruitless in my search for other experiences or sightings of this thing with the same characteristics as mine. Thanks in advance. This experience scared the hell out of me so bad it wasn't until 3 years ago I was, for the first time, maybe 11 years since that experience, actually able to go out into that field and, shut the chickens in for the night. I really feel like I'm gonna see this thing again, and when I do, it's gonna try and take me. The way it looked at me the whole time as it turned to walk away wasn't a fleeing type of action. It's almost like it was like, oh yeah, just wait till I catch you next time. It's quite literally insane for me to even think about, because, well, it really happened and it's straight out of Donnie Darko. Like, if that's real, then what's not, Weird as shit. Two things. One, I miss my horribly ugly PT Cruiser that somebody put a turbo in and welded the back door shut without me noticing. Very stupid me. And two, Donnie Darko is an amazing movie. I watched myself sleep paralysis. This is the story of the first time I ever had sleep paralysis. I was 17 years old, over 5 years ago. I've had sleep paralysis several times since then, but it doesn't scare me anymore. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up roughly at 8 a.m. randomly and everything was normal. Except for the fact that my mother took my phone away and left the house because we got into a fight the night prior. I didn't know what to do without my phone, so I just turned on Netflix. I dozed off at about 11 a.m. I instantly had a lucid dream where I was walking back from the Walgreens right down the street from my house. I had a pack of cigarettes in my hand, and I thought this was real and not a dream. I would frequently do that, and, well, I had a buddy at Walgreens that would hook me up even though I wasn't of legal smoking age. So I'm walking down the street back to my house, and that's where I noticed an old lady, hunched over with a cane. She was wearing all black, old and torn clothes with a hood up. I believe this was an encounter with the old hag. I bumped into her. As soon as I bumped into her, I was instantly teleported back to my bed. But it was still my dream, and this time I was under my bed and I heard two people have sex on top of me. My phone appeared in front of my face and I saw bright rainbow-like colors flashing all around, and I teleported again. I was on top of my bed, but I was awake and I knew something was off because I couldn't move. All I could move was my head, which was odd, and I heard about this. It must be sleep paralysis, I thought to myself. I've heard story after story, and I started to freak out. I just didn't want to see anything, and I turned my head to the left. That's where my door is. It was wide open, and I know it was closed when I went to sleep. I heard footsteps coming to my door, and I started to panic. Looked back at my ceiling, closed my eyes, and looked back to my left facing the door. And what I saw was shocking. Every bone in my body tingled, and my heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest and run away. I saw my own face. I was sleeping, and my head was facing the ceiling, just how I fell asleep. But I was looking left now, at myself. It was almost like I had come out of my own body. It was only a few seconds, but it felt like forever. It ended. I could move again, and my door was shut just how I left it. My TV was on just like I left it too. Writing this story gave me the chills just from thinking about it after all these years. I've done a lot of research on the old hag to no avail. Reminds me when my eyeball popped out of my head for a moment and I could see down and straight at the same time. The Visit. I was roughly 7 or 8 years old when this happened, but it is something that I won't ever forget. My great-grandma took a liking to me that she didn't have for anyone else in the family. She was old, of course, so she would sit on her recliner in the living room. I would always hang out with her and play with my fire trucks. She'd always make me this amazing beef stew, and yeah, we would just hang out together. One morning I woke up and I was on my way to my great-grandma's room. And to my surprise, the door was locked and my aunt and dad told me to go back to my room. I had no idea what was going on and, well, she passed away in her sleep. About 3 weeks later, I'm sleeping on the floor in my grandma's room. My grandma was sleeping in her bed, the same room that my great-grandma passed away in. I was sleeping on the floor with a sleeping bag because I was a kid and I just wanted to. I had a perfect view of the hallway and the bathroom from where I was, and the doors were open. On this night, something randomly woke me up at about 1 a.m. and the bedroom door was open and so was the bathroom door. My eyes were drawn to the bathroom mirror for some reason. All of a sudden, the sink turned on and I saw this weird mist-like figure start to appear. After about a few minutes, the sink turned off and I watched the figure as it disappeared. Then it reappeared in the bedroom doorway. I was on the brink of tears at this point. The white, misty figure crept closer and closer to me, till I was standing over it, or standing over me. I saw it bend down, and what looked like an arm and a hand reached down to me and grabbed my arm very lightly. When this happened, I felt a little shock in my arms and my abs, and I got up as fast as I could and got my grandma just to let me in the bed with her. And to this day, I have no idea what or who it was. I've always thought that it was my great-grandma trying to say hi to me. And I think that since I was so scared, she touched me. Never wanted to scare me like that again. Never saw her after that. Mine would chase me around with a cane and whack me. Rest in peace regardless. The Devil's Tramping Ground. I have a friend who's really into the paranormal like myself. Let's call him Jake. It was October of 2018. We just wanted to go ghost hunting or explore supposedly haunted buildings and areas. We had been researching and decided our drive limit was 4 hours. Came across a place called the Devil's Tramping Ground. At this place, there's a circle in the woods that can't grow grass, and the trees make a circle around it. As legend has it, the devil himself uses that circle of sand and dirt as a portal. He comes to Earth at night and stomps on the ground, pacing back and forth. We read that if you tried to sleep there, on the circle, you'll hear a soothing female singing, and it'll put you to sleep, and then you'll wake up in a different location. So what did we do? We brought tents, sleeping bags, chairs, and beers, of course. Okay, back to the story. Me and Jake were planning our trip, and another one of my buddies caught wind of it. Let's call him Nick. We were all set to go on Friday when we get out of work. We left the base at around 4 p.m., but didn't actually hit the road until roughly 8 p.m. because we kept getting sidetracked at different stores. I'll skip right to the next part. We get off the highway. It's close to midnight. We have our GPS on, and it was us going down the only damn road with no streetlights. And of course, we start driving down that narrow, dark road slowly, so we can find a clearing for the Devil's Tramping Ground. We read that there would be satanic symbols in front of the clearing, written onto the road. We had our eyes peeled, and there was something odd about this road, and I shit you not. We were being chased the entire way by about 10 dogs and one black dog. Every dog's barking except for that black dog, and he kept appearing in the woods to the left of us and in front of us as if we're driving and he's just trying to turn us around. We found the symbols and knew it was it. The dogs hadn't followed us that far. We parked, got out, we had flashlights. We scoped out the area, and I'm not gonna lie, it was extremely unsettling. We made our way up to the circle and thought, perfect, let's go get our shit. Fast forward about an hour, and it's quiet. We have our tent set up in the circle. We have our chairs set up surrounding our cooler, just telling ghost stories and drinking. Nothing really seemed to bother us other than the occasional twig snapping that sounded like footsteps and the feeling of being watched. We just chalked it up to animals. It's 2 a.m. now. I start to hear voices all around me. And I'm not the only one. Nick and Jake heard it too, and it felt like we were about to be jumped by a group of men surrounding us. But we knew whatever it was wasn't human. The voices stopped, and I shit you not, at the same time the car light turned on. We went to the car to find all the doors open. Unnerved, we slowly closed all the doors and went back to drinking. 2:30 a.m., we're all on edge. Not even drunk at this point because of the events that just took place. Everyone was silent. I could hear and feel my heart beating out of my chest, and you'll never believe it. We all heard beautiful humming coming from every direction. Wish I could describe how it sounded, but we knew that it was not good. We all leaned in as the singing was going on, and without one word spoken, we all got up and went to the car to get out of there. We then visited Lydia's bridge because it was nearby, and it said that Lydia walks the road and the bridge at night. We didn't see anything, so we slept in a nearby Walmart parking lot in the car. Went back the next morning for our things. An unusual encounter. I have always believed in the paranormal. I grew up hearing and seeing things in my house. I'm from Northford, Connecticut, so you can imagine the entire state is pretty haunted. I've heard everything from the house settling to glass breaking, and to my shock, no glass would be shattered on the floor. Anyways, I was 12 when this happened. That makes it back in 2010. My mom and dad split up, so I would go visit my mom on the weekends and be with my dad during the week. My mom found a nice house in East Haven, Connecticut, set up on a hill with a road leading up the hill. On top was a farm with horses. My mom loves horses, so she jumped on the offer. I was a little shit when I was 12, so I had gotten expelled from school. I was living with my mom and my older brother full time. I'd stay up until the crack of dawn every night and sleep all day. I'd always hear things like creaking steps and doors opening and closing, the usual things. One day my mom has her boyfriend over. He was standing in the kitchen when he felt a tug at his shirt. He turned around and nothing was there. Left shortly after. This one night I'm about to tell you about has me shook to this day, and it still remains a mystery. I'll give you a visual of the third floor of the house. That's where my room was. When you open the front door to my old house, directly to your left is a staircase. You walk up the staircase, and on the second floor, kitchen and living room areas directly on your left. And as you keep walking up, there's a hallway that cuts to the right. At the end of the hallway is a bathroom and a dead end. My room is on the right as you're walking down the hallway, right next to the bathroom. One night my mom, brother, and 2 cousins and aunt went out for dinner. I just wanted to stay home and play Call of Duty. My dog Sydney was in the room keeping me company. She was a small Yorkie. And as I was playing, I suddenly had to go use the bathroom, so waited until my game was over, and when I was back in the lobby, I got up and ran to the bathroom. And my dog followed me. I finished, flushed the toilet, washed my hands. As soon, and I mean as soon as I cut the water off, and I was just there and I was drying my hands, I heard creaking up the stairs. It sounded like somebody was walking up the stairs, and I froze, not knowing who it was or what to do, and I was home alone. Sat there for another second. Footsteps up the stairs stopped. A few seconds went by, which felt like forever, and then just like that, I heard a footstep reach the top step. The hallway. I didn't hesitate. Picked up my dog, ran to my room, and locked the door. Sat back down in my chair in front of my TV and just listened. More footsteps, but this time coming down the hallway toward my room. Heard the footsteps creak all the way until I got to my door. And then it slowly stopped. I was frozen with fear, and a few more seconds go by, and then knock, knock, knock. I immediately called my mom to see if she was home yet, and of course she said no. And after the 3 knocks, I didn't hear anything. No more footsteps, no more nothing. Waited until I finally heard the front door open, and I just burst out of my room relieved. Told my mom what had happened for her to tell me countless other stories of experiences that she had in the house. The moving voices. I've been told from my family that a few of us are sensitive, whether it be paranormal or otherwise. Never really truly opened myself or sought after any of this quote-unquote sensitive natures, but apparently most of my experiences have been because of this connection. I don't have any pictures or evidence, just my own first-hand experiences. My first experience that I remember vividly and have perfect memory of is when my family moved away from my childhood home when I was around 13. We'd been living in the new house for about a month or so and started having some strange things happen to me. It seemed that I was the only one who noticed things even happening. During this time, my parents were fighting quite often. I grew accustomed to hearing them arguing in their room, but then one night, I heard them arguing, and I stepped into the hallway to use the restroom. And as soon as I stepped outside of my room, the arguing stopped. Both of my parents were asleep. Everyone was asleep in the house. I'm not sure what I heard. I was young and confused and thought maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But the next night, it was the same thing. I would hear mumbling far away and voices arguing. Just to step into the hallway and hear nothing but silence. Then one night it got even stranger. Stayed up very late, almost into the morning, and for some reason I just couldn't get to sleep. Turned off my TV just to try to shut my eyes. Everything was very quiet, and then suddenly started to hear the voices again far away arguing. The voices started to become louder somehow. Then they started to move. Tried as hard as I could to understand what the voices were saying, but I couldn't distinguish any words. Then I heard them by my front door, then in front of my closet, then at the foot of my bed. I was so scared I jumped out of bed and turned on all my lights. Stood there waiting to see if I could hear the voices again, but it didn't happen again. After that night, I slept with my TV or my radio on, or I would sleep with headphones in my ears so I wouldn't hear the voices. A few months later, we moved out of that house and I never heard the voices again. This was something that did affect me at a young age and never forgot the experience. It was one of my first experiences that I considered to be paranormal. The time I lived in my aunt's haunted home. A little background on my aunt. My aunt is more than just a sensitive. She can see, hear, feel spirits or entities and even talk to them. These beings can be human or otherwise. They can be dark or positive, it doesn't matter. Just like she never focused or strengthened her abilities, she never wanted these abilities. It was inherited through her family line. But different from me, my aunt is extremely powerful without even trying. During the time I was living there, we became very close. She told me a lot of things about my own abilities that I never would have known if I hadn't lived with her. I want to say it was around maybe the second month of me living with her. That's when strange things started to happen to me. I had a little more experience then, and I noticed that if I paid attention to it, it would only become more noticeable. So the little things that would happen, I would ignore and I would pretend it wasn't there. The room where I was staying didn't have an actual door. It had a simple entryway which led straight into the kitchen area. And I also had a view of the other rooms in the house from this entryway. My room was all the way in the back of the home. Now, my aunt had 4 children. 3 smaller children, 1 child who's in high school, and there was one night that I was about to finally fall asleep after coming home from work, and I heard little footsteps in the kitchen. My first thought was that 2 of the smaller children were up and sneaking a snack. I stayed quiet and I listened, and I heard the little footsteps now running back and forth from the main hallway to the kitchen. Continued on for about maybe 2 minutes. At this point, I got up to confront them about being up so late, and walked into the kitchen area. There was no one in the kitchen, and as I walked more into the kitchen, I could hear and feel on the ground the footsteps going away from me, then toward the hallway. And suddenly, everything went quiet. Mustered up some courage and went back to check on all the kids. I walked into each of their rooms. They were all in a deep sleep, and I didn't understand what was going on. Didn't want to overthink the situation, freak myself out either. Went back into my room, and due to everything I've experienced thus far, I fell asleep with my headphones in my ears. The sounds of the little footsteps continued for the next few weeks after this. And in that time, I knew there was something inside my aunt's home. And so far, it had not been too serious, and had never personally bothered me or the kids, so I didn't talk to anyone about it. But then, one night I stayed up watching TV in my room. Once again, I heard the little footsteps. I ignored it, and I continued to watch TV. But then I heard the little footsteps run up to my entryway and then stop. I froze, muted my TV, and waited to see if I heard anything else. I was lying flat on my stomach in my bed, and I had my feet and hands hanging off from the sides. The next thing I knew, my bracelet on my arm started to move very slightly up and down my forearm. I freaked out, and I took it off and threw it across the room. After that, my ankle bracelet on my leg did the same thing. I freaked out and jumped up on my bed and told it to please stop. Up until then, nothing inside that home had ever personally touched me. Heard the little footsteps run back through the kitchen, and this time I heard giggling. I could definitely feel whatever this was, and that it was playing with me, much like my little cousins would. Really unnerved me. But still, then I decided not to say anything. After the experience, I had the feeling with hearing some sort of ghost children in my aunt's home. I decided to have my uncle install an actual door to my room, and every night I started sleeping with the door to my room closed. I didn't have another encounter with what I thought was ghost children. My aunt's home was always very lively and very busy. With 4 kids, 3 dogs, it was never quiet inside the house. There was one day that I was actually left home alone for a change. Came home from work and I decided I was going to take a shower. Don't really know why, but I needed to go into one of the kids' rooms to get something. Left the lights turned off and I walked in. I looked to my left toward one of the boys' beds. I saw a transparent figure of a man sitting on his bed. Couldn't see his entire body, but the upper torso, and I could vividly see all the features of his face. He had sunken dark eyes and long black straight hair. He had no expression, but his eyes were full of sadness. As soon as I saw him, I did a double take, turned on the lights, and the figure was gone. For some reason, I wasn't really scared of this apparition, and I honestly doubted myself about what it was I was seeing. The room was dark. I only saw him for a few seconds, but all the vividness of his features made me wonder if I really did see something. A few days after seeing the ghost of the man, the house was again filled with people. It was the middle of the day, and everybody was off in different parts of the house. I had volunteered to take the dogs out in the backyard to play, and walked into the kitchen and felt like something was off. The dogs didn't react to how I was feeling, so I tried to ignore it. Thought to myself I was being silly. In the middle of the day, after all, I walked over to the door that leads into the back porch. And as I reached for the handle of the doorknob, it turned by itself, and the door opened. I backed up and watched the door fully open and then out of nowhere completely close again by itself. My heart was racing fast. My aunt's boxer dog was standing in front of me with his attention on the door. He was tensed up, growling, and ready to pounce at whatever was in front of me. I waited to see what would happen, and all of a sudden there was a loud boom sound on the side of the porch door. It was so loud, everybody just ran over to see what happened, and I couldn't explain any of it. This was my last straw. I decided to tell my aunt that night everything I had experienced in her house. With all the experiences I've had so far while living with my aunt and her family in her home, I decided to sit down with her and let her know everything that happened to me. I'd tell her about the ghost children, the apparition of the man that I saw, and the door that opened and closed by itself during the middle of the day. My aunt then began to explain to me my family's connection to being able to feel, hear, and talk with the other side. Apparently, it was mostly just the women on our side of the family. There were a few men, including one of her young boys, that had this ability. She explained to me that I was a little bit different. That's because not only my father's side had this ability, but also women in my mother's side as well. She told me I was strong with my ability, but since I was afraid and wouldn't open myself to it, I couldn't do the things that she or her mother could do. And that was because I was so afraid that, there's all these different entities and they're attracted to my energy. Unfortunately, it would be something that I could not turn off on my own without practice and meditation. Then she revealed to me something that, until this day, I'm not really sure if I believe yet. She told me that I was extremely highly protected by quote-unquote something. She couldn't really clearly see what was protecting me, but she couldn't tell if it was an ancestral spirit or just my guardian angel. But she told me if I were to ever have a psychic or fortune teller, if the person truly had these abilities, the entity protecting me would not allow for them to read me. Apparently told her that because she's my family, didn't have to protect me from her, so I was completely shocked by this. I have an extremely high respect for the other side, whether it's ghosts or otherwise. I don't try to provoke or draw these beings to me, and I've never pursued finding out what it is that's actually protecting me. I have accepted that, unfortunately. I do have this connection, and, well, maybe one day I'll not be so afraid to open myself to what I can really do. After everything my aunt shared with me, I was a little bit unnerved about everything. Everything I knew that was now inside her house. She told me the ghost children were connected to the land, but they were no threat to us. They were here mostly because of the energy of her own children being in the house. And she did also tell me that she couldn't see or feel the apparition of the man that I saw. She knew something was inside of their son's room, but it was always hiding from her. She told me the door that opened by itself was something that was like somewhere outside of her home. It was living out there, and it was trying to find a way to come inside. Whatever this thing was tried to use my fear to find a way inside of her home. And this particular entity was something very negative. That day it merely hit the wall on the outside of the door because my protector would not allow it to enter, no matter how scared I was. The last thing that happened to me at this house was one night I'm watching TV after everyone was asleep. Started to hear and feel somebody tapping on the window that was above my bed. I had the curtain closed, and for some reason I was a little afraid to look outside. Then the tapping noise started to move, and it tapped my window, moved up and down the wall of my room and up to the ceiling. My heart started to race at this point. Then it stopped at the ceiling, and I actually started to hear footsteps on the ceiling. I was freaking out now. Backed up toward my door, and I was ready to go and get my aunt. Then I heard something fall and hit the ground outside of my window. I'm not too sure what I heard after that, but I think it was something like growling. At the same exact moment, my aunt's boxer dog was outside my front door, scratching at my door and barking. Went over and let him in, and he ran and jumped up on my bed and started barking at whatever was outside. Everyone woke up, and my aunt was able to calm down her dog. She knew the thing was out there. She said that it was going to seal my window and sage my room to cleanse. This thing was very attracted to my energy, and it was very angry that I was too protected to get to me. That's probably one of the scariest experiences I had in that house. Literally, about a week later, I got super lucky and finally found my own place to live and moved out. My aunt ended up giving me her boxer. That's because she said the dog and my protector were now attached, and I had even more protection. All of these events happened about 5 years or more ago now, and I've accepted my abilities for what they are. I don't allow for these beings to infest my life or my loved ones. I keep myself always surrounded by positive energy, and thankfully, I'm living a peaceful enough life. Never play the dark cards game. It was a long time ago that I reconnected with a young love. At the time, I had not realized that the man I was starting a relationship with was actually one of my first friends I had made when I first arrived to the United States. After building a relationship over the phone and reconnecting, I finally invited him over to my home to hang out with me and my younger sister. He had previously mentioned to me that he was a little sensitive to the paranormal, which I honestly thought it was really cool since I like all that kind of stuff. The day he came to visit, we're all hanging out in the living room. That's when he asked us if we wanted to play a game with cards. Apparently, we needed 4 players, and there just happened to be 4 of us. And since he brought a friend with him, thinking maybe it could be a double date since my sister was there with me, of course, we all said yes to the game. As he set it up, my sister and I brought out some pillows to place into the floor so it would be comfortable. We all sat down, and the first thing I noticed was the cards themselves. They were placed in 4 stacks. Each had their own symbols. They looked to be stacked in order with the same symbols underneath, although they were upside down. He quickly explained the rules. He said that we can ask questions and we would get 1 of 4 answers. Yes, no, maybe, or no answer. It seemed harmless enough, so we began. We all held hands and we sat there quietly waiting for him to communicate. It felt like forever, especially as he began to move in a weird circular motion, and then out of nowhere he fell backwards. Tears filled his eyes, and we all let go of each other's hands and jumped in surprise. He got up and laughed, and we're all so confused because of his reaction. He calmly said that his spirit had left his body, and he was floating around the room looking at us. Me and my sister looked at each other, and I could tell we were both feeling a little uncomfortable, but didn't know if we should believe him or not. He then started asking questions without speaking any further about his experience. It seemed okay, so we all began to ask questions. We asked silly questions like, "Is anyone there?" and "Are you a boy or a girl?" The questions were nothing too compromising or harmful. A little bit later, we decided to stop playing since there wasn't much happening, and he and his friend decided to leave. It must have been about 5 minutes after they left. That's when my sister and I decided to play again, but just the 2 of us. Right after we started playing, my sister started hearing things around the house as I. We both freaked out and ended the game. She was crying by the front door, begging for us to leave the house. I was facing the front door with my back toward the living room. My mom had a picture frame by the door, and as I'm trying to calm my sister down, I see a shadow in the reflection of the picture I'm facing. Runs behind me, all while we're still hearing noises and feeling really uncomfortable. We both left the house running, quickly got into the phone with my friend, came back and said a few prayers and walked over to the house trying to get rid of whatever could have stayed there. We of course felt better after that, and so he left. We made sure we understood not to play the game without him. A few weeks later, I started to have some weird dreams and difficulty sleeping. Started sleeping with my radio on, but sometimes the volume would change and other times the voice on the song would get deeper and faded. I then started sleeping with my television on, and the radio left off. And as I was having all these different experiences, everything started to become darker for me. First thing that happened was I woke up from a horrible nightmare due to the feeling of sudden movement. I realized I was halfway down my bed, and it's as if I'd been pulled. A few days after that, I woke up around 6 in the morning, and as I'm laying on my stomach, I felt this weight on my back, and I tried to get up. I couldn't. I got desperate, and I was starting to lose air. And as I tried to scream, no words would come out. I tried to get up, but it only became stronger and heavier, and I was yelling and screaming, or so I thought. I kept repeating in my head, "Get off me, let me go." It felt like an eternity. I suddenly heard a firm, strong, and demanding voice say, "Let her go." I felt the relief off my back, and I heard footsteps run off my bed. Tiny footsteps. After that, I could finally get up and scream. I sat up, but for some reason I wasn't scared. I felt peaceful and calm. My room was just alleviated. and all the eerie feelings were gone. Meanwhile, in my sister's room, she had her own episodes. Later found out that she too had suffered from bad dreams. She said that she was in a lifelike nightmare no matter what she would do. She was unable to wake up. She mentioned to me as well that during her dream she felt a cold, tiny hand placed into her forehead. She heard a sweet, firm voice say, "Wake up." She was finally free from that horrible nightmare. We come from a very religious family. We grew up going to church, and if you ask me, I know that those were our guardian angels looking out for us and our safety. And after that, I never encountered anything else. We never played that game again, nor did we invite those people over to our home again. Never spoke about those incidents, and it's something that we decided to leave in the past. Of course, we never told anyone in our family about what happened to us. But we will never ever do anything like that again. We have enough respect to leave all that alone, and enough faith to know that we walk in the light along our guardian angels. Bus stop experience. I had moved into a new apartment with a roommate, which was related to a friend of mine. The apartment was located on the opposite side of town, and I was not familiar with this area when I moved there. A lot of these apartments were literally newly built, but a lot of the lots around the area were still being developed, and it was a very, sort of desolate part of town. Most of this area before construction began was large amounts of old farm areas that were unkept and no longer lived on. My fear was literally a beacon as my aunt explained this to me. The very first event I experienced after moving into my new apartment happened within a week. At the time, I didn't have my own car, and besides getting rides from friends, I mostly had to take a bus to get to work. The bus stop I had to walk to was pretty far away from the apartment complex. There's a lot of new construction everywhere in that road and in front of the complex. But there was a gas station and a very small shopping plaza that was mostly empty except for a bunk and a small mom and pop grocery store. I used to sometimes stop at this grocery store to get some Starbucks iced coffee before walking up to the bus. One very early morning, I want to say maybe 5:30 a.m., walking to the bus stop, and I know this is bad for a girl to be walking alone, but I had my earbuds in and was just walking along, not really paying attention to my surroundings. And suddenly I got a very cold chill up and down my spine. I got the distinct feeling somebody was walking behind me. I turned around, and obviously no one was there. I got a little nervous, and I left one of my earbuds out just to keep myself a little bit more alert. I continued walking and was almost getting to the shopping plaza when I hear running footsteps behind me. Turned around, continued hearing the footsteps, and basically I'm frozen in fear, and I couldn't move any further, and then I hear something rustle in the bushes next to the sidewalk. It's very close to me, and the footsteps stop. I caught my breath, and for some reason, the energy I felt was not a positive one. So I decided to sprint to the little grocery store in the plaza. Calm myself down long enough to walk over and buy what I needed. Then I realized I had another 7 or 8 minute walk to get to the bus stop. As I neared the door to leave the store, in the parking lot, I see as clear as day a figure of a man that seems like he was standing in his own fog. Honestly, I couldn't tell any of his features, but as soon as he seemed to realize I saw him completely vanished. I looked around me to see if somebody else had seen it, but it was 5:50 a.m. at this point, and no one in the store was with me except for the person at the register. I gathered my courage and forced myself to walk to the bus stop. And as I'm waiting for the bus to arrive, I again start to feel a shiver and my heartbeat quickened. got up from the bench where I was waiting and starting to look around, but I couldn't see anything. Then I swear as I breathe, I heard something directly in my ear. It was the voice of a man saying, "I'm sorry." As I'm typing this, I literally have chills just remembering the sound of his voice. I instantly knew it was the figure I had seen in the parking lot. Stood there so freaked out, almost in tears, and the bus finally came to stop to get me. And after this happened to me, paid my friend to drive me to work for the next 2 months. Message from the boy in the blue striped shirt. I noticed a few weird things happen in my place. Tried my hardest to ignore it. I practiced meditating and keeping myself calm and balanced. That way I can control the fear I had. There were a few constant things that continued happening that I could not explain. First thing was my wallet. I always put my wallet inside my purse hanging from the doorknob of my closet door. There were numerous times I'd find my wallet in really random places. I'd wake up and find it on the floor at the foot of my bed. I'd find it laying on the windowsill inside my bedroom. My wallet at the time was a zipper wallet with a loop for your wrist attached to it. There was one time I found it hanging from the hook of where I hung my towel in the bathroom. Super weird. There was even one time my roommate left it hanging from the room doorknob. Told her I didn't know where it was, and she said she found the wallet on top of the washing machine in the laundry room. It became pretty obvious that something was trying to get my attention. Then I started seeing really weird shadows from the corners of my eyes. Started right after my roommate's boyfriend had moved in with us. They would be strange, fast-moving, blurry shadows. As soon as I would try to look at whatever was moving, it would just dash out of my viewpoint. Really didn't get it. One night, I stayed up in the living room after my roommates had gone to sleep, and I saw a very dark, slow-moving shadow going across the doorway to the kitchen, going through the wall that leads to outside of the apartment. I was really scared because this thing was completely black and solid. Even though I didn't feel anything negative about it, I was not sure really what to do. I actually got up and opened the front door just to see if I could see where it went, and saw nothing. I ended up asking my roommate if she saw anything, and she told me that she had never seen anything like that before. Didn't want to frighten her, so I didn't mention anything else about her. About maybe 2 weeks or so after that experience, I started to see the boy in the blue striped shirt. He wasn't really a small child, he was more of a teenager. I want to say maybe 15 or 16. The first time I saw him, he was sitting on the stairs behind the stairway that led to my apartment. Saw him through the cracks on the steps on the other side of the stairway. Never seen him before, and since he had his back to me, I didn't really say anything to him and continued walking to my apartment. As I reached my apartment, I had a view into the sort of back forested area of the apartment complex, and I saw this kid running into the forested area. I froze because there's no way he could run that fast from the second floor stairs to the bottom and run across the parking lot into the forest. Didn't even hear any footsteps or anything, and I knew immediately then that there was something else. After this, I would see him on and off near the apartment building, or sometimes near my actual apartment door. He'd never look at me or recognize that I was staring at him, but it happened so much I got used to it. I was able to keep myself being afraid and ignored him. One night I got home from work pretty late. Went to sleep rather quickly after taking a shower. Around maybe 1 a.m., my dog started barking into my room. I got up angry because I just didn't want him to wake up anyone else. As I just sit up in my bed, just getting ready to yell at my dog, this kid is standing by the door to my own room. staring off into space. Didn't notice I was staring at him. And at this point, I'm completely frozen. My dog stops barking and is just tensed up next to my bed with his attention completely on this kid. Then out of nowhere, this apparition slowly moves himself in my direction and starts to walk toward my bed. He stops halfway and then he started speaking. At first he sounded muffled, but then I clearly heard him saying to me, it's demons, don't be fooled, everything is because of demons." The way he said it was so strange, like he had to tell me, and it was pretty quick. Right after I heard this, he completely disappeared and my light switch flicked up and my lights turned on. Heard the light switch flick back up, but I was completely frozen solid in my bed. Afterwards, my dog calmed down like nothing happened. Jumped up onto my bed to sleep with me. Didn't dare get up and turn my lights back off. Such an ominous message. Sort of thought maybe he was trying to give me a warning about the apartment. Never saw the kid ever again after this. The shadow figure at the park. This experience I actually shared with an old friend of mine who was staying with me for a week. This didn't happen to me, which actually made it a little bit less scary for me. And since usually stuff would happen only when I was alone, my friend, who I'm going to call L for privacy, had come over during his vacation time from work, decided to stay with me. He was living in a different state at the time, and he would visit his family during the day and then come back to the apartment at night to sleep. Towards the middle of that week, I finally had a day off from work the next day. We had agreed to hang out that night. He picked me up at my job after work, and this was almost 10 p.m. Picked up some takeout and drove to the small park in my apartment complex to eat. We walked over to one of the 2 picnic tables that were at this park, and we were there for maybe an hour just eating our food, reminiscing about old times, and just joking around and having a good time. Suddenly, I felt some really heavy energy in that atmosphere. It was a familiar but still creepy as hell feeling. Kind of froze up and got really quiet and had the urge to get up and look around. I ignored what I was feeling and stayed sitting at the table. L was now giving me a funny look. He asked me if I was okay, and I told him yes. I was starting to get a bit used to this stuff just randomly happening. Didn't want to make a big deal about it to my friend. I then felt like someone was staring at me from a distance. I got chills up and down my arms. Apparently, my friend had some sort of strange feeling too, because I saw him slightly jump up in his seat at the same time that I got this feeling. We looked at each other and we were quiet for a few seconds, and then he asked me if all of a sudden I felt cold. Told him yes. Yeah, I felt cold, and then told him that we should go back to the apartment. We got up, started packing up our trash, walked away from the picnic table and went over to the trash bin, which was to my right. It was near the sidewalk. Turned around, and I can see my friend had stopped, picked up the trash since he was answering a text message on his phone, and well, right behind him on the second picnic table was a shadow figure sitting at the table. I froze and was completely getting chills all over. I automatically assumed, because of my sensitivity to these things, that I was maybe the only one who could see it. My friend then noticed that I was staring behind him. He turned around, my friend jumped back, dropping his phone in the process, and ran over to where I was in panic. I asked him in a whisper if he could see it. He whispered back to me, "Holy shit, is that real?" I told him I could see it as clear as day. We both froze up, stood there super quiet while the shadow just sat there not moving at all. This figure had no discernible shape. It was not in the shape of a person or anything. It was just a round black shadow that only had shoulders and a head. And as I was staring at it, I started to get a sick feeling in my stomach. Started to pray silently in my head that this thing would go away. and suddenly it just randomly vanished. I swear it must have been sitting there for almost the longest 2 or 3 minutes of my life. And as soon as it vanished, we both ran straight to my friend's rental car, with him briefly stopping to grab his phone. Jumped into the car and locked the doors. Elle started the car, and as he was starting to back up out of the parking space, we both heard 2 bangs on the hood of his car. We screamed. He literally did almost a burnout as we drove away from the parking area. He drove fast as hell to where my apartment building was, parked the first guest parking he saw. We then both literally ran straight to my apartment. Eventually, after a long while, we both managed to calm down and talk about what happened. I explained to him the stuff that had happened to me since I moved to the apartment. He was completely freaked out, told me to come stay with him in his family's house because he didn't feel safe. Didn't feel safe with me staying there alone, really. And I explained to him it didn't matter, this stuff happens to me all the time at random places. Doesn't matter where I go. After a while of him trying to convince me, I agreed and we stayed at his family's house for the rest of that week. Obviously, I did have to come back to my apartment after he left. He felt really sympathetic toward me and was genuinely afraid for me. Still lives in another state and calls every once in a while to check up on me. And I, of course, avoided that little park in the apartment complex like the plague after that. The face that followed my friend. Here's something that I experienced with a friend of mine over 3 years ago. To preface, I'm very sensitive to weird paranormal things happening to me. I am not a medium, a psychic, a clairvoyant, or anything like that at all. I'm just simply very sensitive to random, sometimes hearing, seeing, or feeling paranormal things. Whether they're ghosts or not, I don't really know, or try to guess at knowing. I have a very high respect for people who passed on. Anyways, I went to visit my oldest friend over in Atlanta for her birthday. Stayed with her for about a week, and immediately when she picked me up at the airport, I felt like something was really off. Started at first with a weird feeling. She had recently just moved into a new apartment, and when we got there, this feeling had got worse because I felt like her entire apartment was just so heavy. Didn't actually see anything, maybe till a few days later. We got up early in the morning and were getting ready to take a drive out to Lake Lanier, or Lanier, or Lanier. Lanier. We were both in the bathroom doing her hair or something, and when I physically looked at her, I saw a pale, emotionless face of a woman next to her head, as if it was coming out of the wall next to her. I didn't see the face at all in the reflection of the mirror, only when I was physically looking at her. I froze up, just stared at it for a few seconds until whatever the hell it was disappeared. My friend asked me what was wrong. I didn't tell her what I saw. Honestly thought maybe the light of her bathroom was casting a weird shadow on her wall somehow. Later that week, the feeling in her apartment got so much more horrible to the point where she mentioned something about it to me. She shared with me that when she moved into that apartment, she experienced for the first time sleep paralysis, and that it was horrifying. After that, she told me what happened to her. Saw the face again that night when we were cooking dinner, and again this pale, emotionless face next to my friend. The face would not recognize that I was looking at it. But this time I told my friend what I saw. She didn't really believe me, but this face continued to appear at random times throughout that night and well into the next morning. At midday the next day, I was honestly really scared and just wanted to get out of there. Ended up driving out of her mom's house, and during the drive we stopped at a restaurant to have a quick lunch. Both went into the bathroom together. Oh, guess what? The face was there again. My friend finally saw it. We both super freaked out, drove kind of really fast to her mom's house, and we both told her what we experienced. Her mother was not sure if she believed what she was told, but she is very religious and managed to calm the both of us down. wanted to do a prayer with us and bless us with some holy water that was given to her by her pastor. After that, I didn't see the face again for the rest of the time that I stayed with my friend. The feeling in her apartment was still sort of weird, but not as horrible as before. I left Sunday, and when I called her the week after, she told me her mom had her pastor come over to her apartment and said some prayers. My friend never told me if she ever saw the face again. I let it go. I didn't want to stir anything up. It was really strange for sure, and I think maybe something was in her apartment when she moved in and somehow got attached to her. She doesn't live in that apartment anymore, but she still sometimes has sleep paralysis. I don't think it has anything to do with her experience in that apartment, though. Stuff moving around on my desk. This is something I've noticed randomly happening just more recently, like within the very past month or so. I believe stuff has been moving around on my desk at work all by itself. I'd come into my office in the morning and notice very small different objects not where I usually always have them. Now I noticed this because I have weird OCD with my organization of my desk. I do not like changing my setup with how I have things on my desk. I'd noticed my stapler in a different spot, my paperweight, which is also a sticky note dispenser, it would be inside my drawer cabinet. And when I know for a fact the previous day it was on the top of my desk. I have separate computer speakers that are movable located behind my dual computer monitors, and those have slightly moved around as well. Not in a big way, but enough that it caught my attention. I also have a lot of cute little figurines of different stuff that I like for decoration, and those have been rearranged to different spots as well, or I'd find them completely knocked over even. I thought that maybe when the janitors come to clean at night they're being a bit rough and accidentally hitting my desk somehow, but then I figured more than just a few little things would be out of place, right? I'm honestly not sure about this. I usually am sensitive to paranormal stuff, but I honestly have not felt anything weird in my office. And I've been working here for the past 4 years. First time something like this has even happened. Very curious and very suspicious since my building at work has been empty since the shutdown of all my coworkers, and they've all been working from home basically, so I can't blame it on any one of them. About 2 days ago, something happened that's the reason why I thought I should post this. I walked in earlier than usual before starting my shift, and I immediately noticed 2 of my decorative figurines were knocked over and on the floor. Thought maybe somebody hit my desk by accident, leaned over and picked them up, and as I'm doing this, the only 2 picture frames I have on my desk shifted slightly forward toward my direction. My small notepad in front of my monitors also shifted. All at the same time. Froze there for a second, but nothing else happened for about 2 minutes or so that I was standing there waiting to see if I'm losing my damn mind. Sort of think I am, since nothing else happened so far. What do you guys think? Like I said, I am sensitive and usually feel certain energies around me, but it's very strange to have this happen at my workplace, especially since nothing's ever happened here before. No pattern to it, all very random. I'm going to continue to stay skeptical about it being paranormal. Look at the tapes. Some strange things have been happening. So the past few years, paranormal things have been happening. They stopped last year, but started up again. I'm seeing a pattern. As soon as I get closer with my religion, this weird stuff starts happening. My mom bought cleansing candles off of Amazon as it's going to help, and all I can do is pray. But now I'm asking for answers. It started about last year mainly, when there was one night that things on my shelf got pushed off and I left the room. They were standing upright, especially odd because it was a candle and a cardboard poster thing. When I was walking down the stairs, it got pushed by air. My sister was behind me and saw it all. My mom held me in her arms, and I just cried in fear. And now it started again. I was chilling in my room, and my closet light was off, and I'm laying in my bed, and I didn't even notice it, but vividly remember it being off when I laid down. And then I walked out to get a snack. The faucet in my bathroom's on, and if it's on for even a few minutes, it'll, rise, but literally it's not even above the drain. Asked my mom if she said that she doesn't know, and she didn't go upstairs, and I was alone upstairs. And I'd believe it if you said that it was like a mechanical issue. If my handle wasn't so long, it literally turned all the way and the plumbing's perfectly fine. Now, not to mention the physical paranormal things I've experienced lately, but as I'm older, when I was a child, I experienced odd things too. Yes, lots of lucid dreams, but I used to feel hands on my shoulders and people in the corners of my eyes. My mom said it was the hands of God, and as a religious person, it felt like a sinister touch. This was before my essay, so it wasn't a trauma response, but maybe these paranormal activities are hallucinations or even memory loss. Not the sink, because the fact that it'll flood. Maybe it's memory loss due to extreme trauma or depression that I've gained through the past few years. Man, I don't know. I'm only a teen. And it's only the end of tonight's stories. See ya.